IVM.
Hey everybody, we'd like to welcome a new sponsor, Storytel. Storytel is an audiobook streaming services for mobile and tablets. If you haven't heard audiobooks before and you're a podcast listener, audiobooks are probably right up your alley. You can enjoy your favorite titles when you travel, exercise, or cook. There are great books over here, like the Percy Jackson series is available if you want like some new fantasy, or if you want to go for something old school or classic. You can get either Bram Stoker's Dracula, or you could get Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter series. Download Storytel today from the app or Play Store and enjoy a free 14-day trial. That's Storytel, Storytel. Storytel from the App Store or Play Store. Download it today.
In 2 seasons of the reDiscovery podcast, Ambika and Hoshna have taken us to nooks and crannies of the country to experience paths less traveled, understand vibrant cultures, and gorge on food they couldn't get enough of. This season, they introduce you to people and organizations who strive to make a difference in the way we experience and look at travel. This is the reDiscovery podcast.
Hi, I'm Ambika.
And I'm Hoshna.
And this is the reDiscovery podcast. So in this season of the podcast, we're looking at different ways of how people we've met during our travels are impacting their community or surroundings. And I mean, this could be in any number of ways. But basically something that either preserves local heritage or culture, or is documenting something that's dying out, or is making travel easier for other people.
Yeah, so this specific episode is about making travel easier for people with disabilities.
Yes, and on this episode, we have a very special guest.
So in this episode, we're going to talk about making travel easier for disabilities, for people with disabilities. It's something which we don't really think about very often, but travel is not always easy. There's a little bit of walking to do. You have to get places, get in and out of buses. And
yeah, if you travel the way we travel, it's especially a little bit challenging at times, I think, because...
Yeah, and even the small things, right? Simple things, you don't really think about it. But getting into a restaurant which may have steps, or climbing up steps to see a monument, or any number of things.
Yeah, or if you're in an old homestay, for example, and your room is on the first floor, and maybe you have crutches. So that becomes a little difficult. And I mean, we have to admit, I think, that we don't always think about this.
Yeah, but it sort of hit home last year when we were traveling. We were doing a trip in Kerala and along with a group. And one of our co-travelers was a guy called Thasvi, who's a movie star in the south.
Yeah, he's really famous in Kerala. I mean, everywhere we were mobbed by fans.
Yeah.
And he's very, very good looking. Yeah.
He's a nice guy too, but unfortunately he lost his leg in a bike accident a couple of years ago. And since then he's been on crutches. And traveling with him really hit home about how difficult it can be even to do small, simple things for people with disabilities.
Yeah. And I mean, Thasvi is really great. I mean, he's, I think, sort of learned to live in this new role that he has. And he doesn't really let too many things stop him. And I think on the group, wherever we went, he was there. But it does make you think about even something as simple as getting in and out of a tempo.
So
can
to
be
talk
difficult.
about accessibility and how travel can be made more accessible for people with disabilities or even seniors, we have with us a very special guest today, Yeshwant Holkar.
Hi, Yeshwant.
Hi.
How are you?
All well, thanks.
So Yeshwant runs a company called Umoja, which runs on the tagline, Travel Made Accessible. So we'll be talking to Yeshwant about that. Also, it's fun to talk about different places that everybody can access. So that's kind of the point of the episode today. And a little very fun fact is that we have royalty with us in the studio, as Yeshwant rolls his eyes, because I'm sure he gets that a lot. Yes, it's true. Yeshwant is a prince. So we're all super excited.
Yeah, so he's part of the Holkar clan of Maheshwar in Madhya Pradesh.
Which we visited.
Yeah. and we've been to Maheshwar. We met his dad, Richard Holkar, there. They have this huge, massive force. So yes, it is it's pretty cool.
And ladies, I have to tell you, Yeshwant is very tall and very good looking.
But he's married and he just had a child.
Yes, so he is off the market, but still very nice to look at while we're sitting here in the studio.
Okay, let's get back.
Okay, well, just for the ladies, because it's nice to put these things out there. Okay, so let's start with a simple question, Yeshwant. What does Umoja mean?
A great question. So Umoja is actually a word in Swahili. Why Swahili? Because my co-founder Ben Musgrave, his mother was from East Africa, so they speak Swahili there, and we were thinking of a word that really spoke for what Umoja is about, and Umoja is really about inclusion. So Umoja means inclusive.
Oh, that's
cool.
great. That's nice. Yeah.
So where did this idea come from to start a travel company specifically focused on people with disabilities? I mean, it's a very interesting, it's a novel idea. It's not something we've come across before.
So it's a crazy idea, but it has really sort of given me a lot of insight into sort of what I'd like to do in my life. And it started all really, Hoshner, about 4 years ago. I was speaking with my godmother, which is a very good family friend. She had polio as a child, and she was telling me how difficult it was for her to travel around. You know, she's very active. She's a wheelchair user, but she's very, very active. She loves to travel around the world. She goes with her husband places. And she was telling me how difficult it was for her to find places, right? So the very first part of any trip is doing your research, going on the internet, calling up friends, TripAdvisor, this, that, and the other. But
or reading the reDiscovery blog.
Even better, exactly.
Shameless plug.
Listening to this podcast. She would go on online, and all the websites had useless information about what was accessible. Then she would sort of call up hotels and say, hey, do you have a ramp? Can you do this? And she's a lovely lady, so they would entertain her. You know, she could sweet talk her way into and out of everything.
I want to interrupt here and ask, I mean, was she looking at places in India or all around the world?
All around.
Okay.
All around. I mean, from Buenos Aires to Bombay.
Right.
Mumbai.
It's a safe space.
Correct. She would call up these hotels and literally have the general manager of the hotel go step by step. Can you tell me about how many steps there are to get from the parking lot to the lobby? Can you tell me about the room? What kind of thing? Can you send me a picture? You know, each place took her half an hour, 45 minutes. And despite all of that, things would still go wrong. You know, she told me about a trip she took to Patagonia, right? So from New York, where she lives, she traveled all the way to Patagonia. It's a 16, 18-hour flight, a long drive. It's difficult for people with disabilities, you know, to do that. It's hard on their bodies. And she went there to experience this very famous spa. And, you know, she'd planned it for months, and it was expensive. And she landed up at this place. And after having done all this research, after that GM having walked her through the hotel on the phone, right? She lands up, she finds out that the spa is down this long corridor that's very narrow, which means that her wheelchair couldn't fit down that corridor.
That's terrible.
You know? And so then it was all, you know, everything. So that was just one example of how it all can really blow up. And when it blows up for people with disabilities, it's not only inconvenient, it's dangerous. You know, it's like they can have medical problems.
Right.
So that's where it came from. So how do we solve that problem?
Yeah, I guess a narrow corridor is not, it's not really something anyone would think about.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, I mean,
exactly.
Because you think of, when someone says disability, I think the most common thought that comes across is maybe somebody on a wheelchair or on crutches, or perhaps somebody with a
visual impairment.
Yeah, with a dog who's, you know, helps
seeing
them,
eye dog,
a seeing eye dog. But you don't really think of what that entails.
Yeah, and there are lots of small things that you could miss simply because you're not used to thinking that way or not used to looking at it in a certain manner.
Right. I mean, the width of a corridor is
how do you think about that?
Yeah, unless you're trained to think about.
So since we're talking about these different kind of disabilities, when you all started off, what kind of disabilities did you look to encompass in tackling through your organization?
Really good question. So we said, look, we can't solve everybody's problems from day one, right? Let's start somewhere and then slowly build expertise, and then continue to do this for more and more people in different categories of disability. So we said, who are the people that we know that we can speak with and understand their problems? And a lot of the people we knew personally were wheelchair users. So we said, chalo, let's start with that particular demographic.
Is that the largest demographic?
Ironically, it's one of the smaller demographics,
oh, really?
Right? So, I mean, the stats show that about 5% of people with disabilities are wheelchair users.
In the world,
right? So, despite that, most of the facilities that we see
geared towards
are
that.
ramps.
Right.
Everybody's
Yeah,
got a
the-
ramp. Chalo,
everyone
I've got a
says-
ramp and I'm friendly for the disabled.
Right.
But actually, there's 3 times as many people who have visual impairments, 4 times as many people who have auditory impairments. There's nothing for them, especially in our country. There's hardly any braille signage. There's hardly any hearing induction loops, things that help people hear better. None of that is there. Nobody knows how to speak Indian Sign Language.
Right.
So the ecosystem in other spaces really needs to be developed.
Right. So, do you think that is India really bad?
No, it's a lot. See, everybody thinks India is really,
Yeah,
really
I mean,
bad.
I think that's a question a lot of people will ask, and I mean, we've done a fair amount of travel now across the country, and I have noticed all the UNESCO sites, for example, have signs in Braille. But what if somebody doesn't know how to read Braille? There's no audio information, for example.
Correct.
Some of the states claim to have audio information for their sites, but
Some of the
we've
larger
tried
sites
it.
have audio guides.
Yeah, some
a
of
lot
them,
of them have audio guides which don't work.
which don't work.
So-
But then, I mean, obviously that helps a certain set of people. I think I've noticed a lot of the ASI museums, for example, will have a ramp, but then they don't have bathrooms, right?
Correct.
So I've noticed these, and I've been thinking about it a little bit since we've been talking. And I'm not even sure. People think about a bathroom because a lot of times in small spaces, bathrooms are really small. But if you're on a wheelchair, for example, how do you use the bathroom?
It comes back to that first problem that you mentioned, which is the width of the corridor, right?
Yeah.
The width of the doorway into a bathroom is the biggest barrier that people who have mobility-based impairments, wheelchair users, face, right? Everywhere you go in India, especially budget hotels, for some reason, nobody knows. Some architect made this decision back in the day. I don't know how or why or when. But
we are great at optimizing our user space, right? Like find the tiniest little corridor. Oh, let's make 3 bathrooms there.
Exactly, right? And these doorways are all 65 centimeters wide. Why? There's ample space to make it bigger. It doesn't cost more than maybe 100 rupees more to make a bigger doorway. But for some reason, everywhere we go, it's 65 centimeters. Now,
and you know that it's 65 centimeters. It's a very specific number.
Okay, some are 68, some are 63, but most of the ones we've seen are 65. Because we go and measure them.
Right.
Okay.
We go and measure them. Again, there's no reason. We don't see why they're 65. I think it just became a thumb rule or something.
Right.
And that means that somebody's wheelchair is won't fit, right? The wheels will get stuck going in the door.
Out of curiosity, what is the average width of a wheelchair?
So there are manual wheelchairs and there are powered wheelchairs,
Right.
So manual wheelchairs can be about 70, 75 and powered wheelchairs, because they have, motors and all of that in them, they generally be 75, 80, big
wow.
ones
So
are
that's
85.
a big difference.
Yeah. It's a game changer,
Since you were talking about the fact that you all have actually gone and measured the width of doors, what is it actually that you all do when you say that, I'm going to make it easier for a disabled person to travel with us? How is it that you
what
that
is
you offer
travel
them?
made accessible?
So what we do starts with the information, right? Everything starts with highly detailed and dependable access information.
Right.
So we go to these places. Not only do we understand, is there a ramp, but is the ramp too steep? Is the ramp too slippery? We take a picture of the ramp. We go inside. We understand, is the height of the, let's say, table at the restaurant, is it high enough for a wheelchair to fit under? We understand if there's braille signage in the lift, right? How is a blind person supposed to know what floor the lift is on? It's impossible. The lift needs to have, voice prompts. And you come across
that's
these
really
things.
intense.
That's really detailed.
What do you do, right? And these are such simple things that all modern lifts have a voice prompt, right? But they switch it off. They switch it off because they're like, oh, it bugs people.
Right.
How stupid,
But I hate to ask this question, but I think maybe I need to ask, is it common for a visually impaired person to be traveling alone?
Very.
Yeah?
Very, very.
Okay,
So
well, that's great also.
Within a small group of visually impaired people, there are highly, highly active travelers, right? Especially for work travel. A lot of visually impaired people work at huge MNCs, So these people go to conferences, they're out and about. And the idea is that it becomes chicken and egg, right? Because facilities are not so accessible, people cannot go independently, so they stay at home or they travel with an attendant or a companion or wait for their family. But why is that the case, right?
Yeah, well, I mean,
it shouldn't have to be.
It shouldn't have to be. Yeah,
it
you're
shouldn't
right.
have to be.
So you go in to the hotels and to these spaces to figure out everything from the ramp to the buttons in the lift.
We take about 250 different data points. From the height of the bed to the width of the door to what sort of signage there are, whether there are emergency procedures. We do what we call a complete access profile. That access profile is done in a very technologically enhanced way so that we can immediately create what is the hotel profile, right? The hotel's access profile is created on our website, and that anybody can search by those data points. So I can come down to the detail of telling you whether a manual wheelchair can fit in that particular restaurant or that hotel versus whether a powered wheelchair that is higher, right? A powered wheelchair's wheelbase is higher. It won't fit under the particular table. So in that way, we empower the actual end user, the person with a disability, with very, very detailed
So somebody could come to your website, he could click on a bunch of filters and say that, okay, these are the 10 hotels that meet my criteria.
Exactly. So
that's pretty cool.
One way is to do it by filters. We also then get people to create their own access profile, right? Because it's not enough to say, is it wheelchair accessible, right? So some people have enough upper body strength who are wheelchair users to pick themselves out of their wheelchair and transfer into a bed. Some people don't. So we actually we ask questions of the user. What are you comfortable doing? What are you able to do? What are your different accessibility requirements? Based on that profile, we then match hotels to that person's profile. And we were able to tell them that this hotel is an 8 on 10 for your specific profile, because not only is that hotel room, the bathroom okay, but the more spaces in that hotel that are accessible, means if you can go to the restaurant or the spa or the gym or the pool or whatever, the more places are, the higher the score.
Right.
So we get really, really powerful matches that people love.
So on that note, we're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Tired of the shrill madness of primetime television?
Can't make sense of your morning newspaper anymore?
Then take a break to delve into some real conversations about policy, politics and economics.
Join me, Pavan Srinath,
and me, Hamsini Hariharan,
as we analyze news and views from India and the world and talk to experts on a wide range of issues on the Pragati podcast.
Episodes out every fortnight.
You can find us on the IVM Podcasts app or wherever else you get your podcasts from.
Welcome back to the reDiscovery podcast. So do you only do hotels then for people, or do you... So for example, I mean, people, they go to travel companies or tour groups to create full itineraries for them, because a lot of people don't really want to go into the trouble of doing that themselves, someone who has a pre-ready tour package, so to speak. So do you do that as well?
Absolutely.
So it's not just about going to a hotel, right? I mean, I'm in a space, say I've come to Maheshwar, for example.
Starting point, right? There might be so many other
challenges
along the way.
But you want to see things, you want to go see the monuments and eat the local food or everything, and Maheshwar is a great place to do all of these things.
So we do both,
Okay,
we do itinerary based travel. So we've come up with great package. You can go down to Kerala and stay on an accessible houseboat and go and see local dance performances and all of that, and where we have checked those places and we know that they are accessible. Some people like that. Some people are like you guys that want to go off the map and just tell me where a cool hotel is, and I just want to either go for business and I need the hotel, or I want to go and make my own thing. I don't want to join some preset plan. So we do both.
Okay. So somebody can come to the website and choose depending on what they want to do.
Exactly.
So what are some good places in India? I mean, since our show is really focused on India, and that's what we do, all our travel. What are some good places in India you mentioned Kerala.
Absolutely.
What are some other options?
So Kerala has been super popular, not only because it's a beautiful place and you can go up to Munnar, you can go down to the backwaters and all that, but it also has wonderful Ayurvedic treatments, right? So a lot of people that have sort of neuromuscular problems, Ayurvedic treatment is really helpful. So Kerala is awesome. We also do Goa, right? Everybody likes to have fun in Goa. So we wrote actually the first wheelchair user's guide to Goa.
Oh,
where
wow.
we covered like all sorts of cool restaurants, cool places, museums, all sorts of things, where people can come and experience what Goa is like, but as a wheelchair user.
Okay. And this is a guide for people who are wheelchair users.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
wheelchair user's guide to Goa.
Is
So
it
when
on
you
your
all-
website?
When you all went about checking out these hotels, what was the kind of reaction you got from the hotels themselves?
Took a lot of convincing to start with, right? When you talk to the big chains, you have to go in and say, listen, we're doing this and it's going to help you because this is a big market. So why don't you let us come and do this? And then they say, oh, maybe. And they discuss it with this one and that one. And then finally, eventually they say yes. When you go to the independents, you're either the door slams on your face, right? It's like a small guy. No, I don't have any disabled people. No, thank you. Or you find the people that have really gone out of their way and done wonderful work and want to. They get it from the first instance where it's not just that it's the right thing to do, but wow, there's so many people who travel with a disability. So cool, yeah. Tell me what I can do.
So those are the smart guys who are
Exactly.
opening up their hotel to a whole market. Because
Exactly.
like you said right off, I mean, it's not that people with disabilities don't want to travel or that they don't travel. They just need to figure out where to travel to.
Exactly.
So did you find in India that there are places that are, more open to these your suggestions and ideas, and some places that are not?
Totally.
Yeah.
So, it's wonderful that, over the last 3 years, more and more focus has come on accessible travel. There are a couple of other companies that are also doing this now. The ecosystem is building, and it's wonderful to see that. And we are now getting from chasing hotels and sort of hammering and, telling them you must do this. Now about once a month, we get a random little hotel from somewhere, from Tamil Nadu or from, anywhere in India
Wants a list.
who says, what do I do? How do I make my place more
That's cool.
accessible? So it's really great that people are sort of waking up to this concept and getting on board the sort of accessibility movement. And then we also find people who have been doing this. I mean, who are we? We're just newbies in this, right? There are people who have been doing this for the last 30 years. There's a guy out in Kerala he was actually an attendant in the Gulf. Okay. He helped a patient who had, I think, a spinal cord injury. So he was with that person for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And he came back to retire to India. And he said, I'm going to make a little guest house. It's right on the river. And I'm going to make it completely accessible.
Oh, that's cool. Where is this guest house?
So that guest house was in Alleppey.
Okay, great. So
So earlier you were saying that when we were talking, you said that it's not just about doing this as a CSR sort of initiative, but it actually makes business sense
Absolutely.
to get your place, disability friendly or accessible.
See, Hoshna, there are 180 million people in India that have some form of disability, right? Those numbers are so large. In the world, it's 1.1 billion.
Wow.
1.1 billion, 1 in 7 people.
that's the entire population of India.
Exactly. So this is a market the size of India, right?
That's a
Wow.
big market.
That's a big market. And at the same time, disability is not only about that one individual, right? It's about the family,
right.
right? So 1 in 4, 1 in 5 families have somebody with a disability in them. So when that family is planning on making a trip, obviously they don't want to leave that person at home. Obviously they don't want to inconvenience that person or themselves. They'd like to be comfortable. They'd like to be safe. And when we start thinking about the elderly here as well, because disability, it's actually what we're talking about is accessibility, right?
Yeah.
So as we age, as populations age, our bodies slow down. We don't like climbing those stairs that much. We need that grab bar in the bathroom to get out, to walk around, get some support.
Oh, I think Hoshna wants that grab bar already.
So there it's, like we did a big sort of launch around Nana Nani trips, right? Let's go
okay.
places where Nana Nani can be comfortable, right? We heard
Oh.
from so many people about how I went to this place in Nainital and there were all these steps and Nana Nani weren't comfortable and I couldn't, a lot of people want to go out and see this particular site and Nana Nani stays home with the kids.
Right.
So Nana Nani want to be comfortable and be in the same place, and they want to take the kids out to the playground. So we do like step-free or low-step hotels as well.
That's amazing. I should tell my Nana Nani. My Nana...
Your Nana doesn't need any step-free stuff.
No, but my Nani does. And he hates to travel without her. I mean, they've been married, 63 years now.
Oh,
so they can't... he doesn't like to go anywhere without her. Also, it's really difficult to travel with him without her. So I'm definitely going to check this out. Because, he loves going places. So that's cool. So name a couple of places in India. You mentioned these options in Kerala. You said you have the guide for Goa. But just if you can name a couple of
places across
three
India.
hotels,
restaurants, or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give a shout out to a place that has really done a fantastic job, which is a restaurant called Go With The Flow, which is just across the Baga River, in Goa. This place actually has ramp access everywhere. They even went to the extent of putting an accessible bathroom, which is so rare to see. And then on top of that, which was like the icing on the cake, they have a beautiful sit-out that looks out. It's one of the most beautiful sort of sunsets that you see in Goa. It looks out all across the beach. You sort of look over the beach because the beach is full of whatever. But you look out over the beach and the sun is setting there. And they installed a lift for wheelchair users to go up, right? So it's not just like, you get the, whatever, you can eat, you can use the loo. But the best experience that they had there, they made accessible.
So
right?
Nani can also go up.
So Nani can go, yeah, exactly. And the food is really good. So
win-win all.
Exactly.
Go with the flow in Baga.
Go with the flow in Baga. Yeah. So that was a really great experience. What's wonderful also to see is monuments, right? Places that have done really good. So
work.
Humayun's tomb, fantastically accessible. Now, there are certain constraints that monuments have. Means you cannot alter the monument itself.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So around those constraints, they've done a really good job. I think the Aga Khan Foundation was involved there. So they've made a sort of museum as you enter there. That museum has braille signage everywhere. They've got a lot of ramp access throughout the place. So big shout out there. And I would say...
give us a hotel.
Yeah,
give us a hotel. I want to remember the name of that one hotel.
In Alleppey.
In Alleppey.
But then you said there's a guy in somewhere who's approached you. Or a hotel chain that you are particularly happy with.
A hotel chain that we're super happy about is Lemon Tree.
I love the Lemon Tree.
Lemon Tree.
Yes.
Yeah. So Lemon Tree, it's all under the sort of guidance and sort of initiative taken by a fantastic woman by the name of Aradhana Lal. She and through the programs that she is spearheading there, not only are they doing fantastic inclusive practices in the employment, right? So they've done, I think they've committed to some percentage of their total workforce being differently abled.
Okay.
Right. So they work with people with Down syndrome in their restaurants. They also work with people who are deaf in their restaurants. And I'll share one story. So the Lemon Tree in Goa, the Lemon Tree Amarante, has the best waiter I have ever come across in my life anywhere in the world.
Wow. Really?
I mean, this is not a small statement. I don't say it lightly. This guy, all right, he is deaf, right? He has an auditory impairment. So that meant he was not waiting for somebody to shout out, "Excuse me, hello."
He was always looking.
He was always looking. He would stand in the corner and just scan the room. And that meant he was watching and anticipating your needs. So when your water was going down, by the time it got to the end, he was there refilling it. When your coffee was almost over, when your plate was done, he was there before you even asked for him, right? And it was just a sense, because they've done such a good job with this program of inclusive employment, the employees have such a sense of dignity in what they're doing.
I think that's the most important.
Yeah, they're so proud of it. And you could see it on his face. He was like, nobody's giving me a handout. I work damn hard for this, but I do a damn good job. And I'm respected for it, And it was wonderful.
So the lemon tree in Goa.
The lemon tree, they do this across. But a shout out to that one guy, the waiter there, who was fantastic.
Okay, so next time we're in Goa, I think we'll
go have a coffee. Yeah.
I like, the lemon trees are all in all of these tier 2 cities. And sometimes you just need, and I mean, we travel on this like tiny budget, but sometimes you just need a little bit of a nice hotel where everything's really clean and the food's really good. So I do
Hot
enjoy.
Water,
yeah. Clean towels. So that's great. So I'm going to ask one last question.
Okay.
What is your favorite travel spot in India? And you can't say Maheshwar because that's your house and it's beautiful and we love it, but it's your house. So not everybody has a fort for a house, huh?
Well, neither do we. It's a hotel.
Sorry, you were saying Gulmarg.
Gulmarg. Yeah, without a doubt. We used to go to Gulmarg. I mean, my family's been going to Gulmarg for 3 generations. But it's
so you're going on an entourage with elephants and horses.
Okay,
totally, man. It's like crossing the Alps with my elephants, crossing the Himalayas with the elephants.
Okay, so excellent. I will let everybody know about the next time you're going on a trip if they want to come see what it looks like. But why don't we give everybody some details about Umoja for any of our listeners who are interested?
Sure.
Or need your services.
Absolutely. So Umoja, you can find us at www.umoja.in, umoja.in. We've got all sorts of fun places to go. We've got, itinerary trips. We organize everything from your transport to your stay. We can also just book a particular taxi vehicle if you need. We've also just launched something that people are really loving, which actually makes travel more affordable to people. It's called the Umoja card, where we've pulled together a partnership network of people across the travel space, across, everyday life as well. And they've given our cardholders special discounts.
Oh, that's
specifically
cool.
Because this is something that will benefit people with disabilities. So seeing a great response there, and it helps people travel.
And everybody likes a good discount.
Everybody likes discounts.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it this time, folks. For more about our travels, you can check out our website. We're at www.reDiscoveryproject.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. And I think that's it for this episode.
Thanks so much, Yash.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Happy travels. For updates about our show and other awesome shows, follow IVM on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at IVM Podcasts. You can also listen to our show on the IVM website, app, and any other podcasting app you may prefer.
The reDiscovery podcast is an IVM production. If you like this show, also check out Paisa Vaisa, a show that will clear all your personal finance doubts, from mutual funds to loans to SIPs.
He bends down to test the warm water for his bath. He comes here to quench his thirst for a hot shower and some podcasts. You can witness how he enjoys having other people talk about cool stuff in his bathroom. Indeed, it helps him with his loneliness. You can find more of his species on ivmpodcast.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.